G'day. So we've finally got to the point where we've started laying out the nuclear plants, all 70 of them. And I'd like to say that we're just about to fire them up, but no, unfortunately, there's actually a lot more work to do. And that's what I'm going to go through today, what we've done and what we've got left to do. There is a lot to cover. We have done a lot, but there's a fair bit to go. There's a lot to cover, so I'm going to go through everything quite briefly and try not make this video too long. So this is out in the Northern Ocean still, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of factories laid out here and a main bus. What I'll quickly do is go through the map first, and then you'll get an idea of what we're about to look at. I'll just bring this across here. Okay, so this is where I was standing just there. If it lets me... Nope, it's not doing it. It's just letting this load in. Give it a second. So this is the this is where I was here. This is the 70 nuclear plants. We have a whole bunch of factories which are required to make the stuff to run the nuclear plants. Up here is the border, and these little ones that look like they're out of place, they actually signify the extent of where you can put water extractors. Anyway, so here is, if it loads, yep, here is that central train hub, central logistics hub that we were working on in the last video. Excuse me. And yeah, so basically in this Northern Ocean we bring all the supplies to this here and then send them off down these two main buses, make all the items we need, and then send them to the nuclear plant. Now you may think, oh, this is a lot of things just for 70 nuclear plants, but we're actually turning it all into plutonium as well, which is why there's so many different machines and factories, and we'll go through that more in a second. And there's actually going to be more factories here because I haven't even got to that point. I'll just show a quick little picture. I did do I planned it out a little bit basically. So everything on the left hand side of this logistics thing is going to be the uranium type stuff that will kill you, and everything on the right hand side is safe. And then we just load balance, submerge, and whatever in the middle here. Alright, so we spent most of the time, I'll just get rid of this for now, and I'll explain this radiation in a second. Actually, I'll explain it right now. The reason I've got this over here, this is to get the uranium. The uranium train station is here in the left hand corner, because when it drops a load off, it becomes irradiated for a while, but not very long, because it quickly goes over to here, gets stored, and then overflow crushed, which is why you'll see that at the moment there's a big radiation area here, but not here, because obviously the radiation depends on how much uranium is there. And on that little picture, when I saved this one, a train would have just dropped a load off, and you can see there's a small one there. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go through and look at where we picked all the stuff up from. Alright, so I've just taken the hypertube from the nuclear setup down there to the central train hub. That there is the green building you would have seen on the map I was just talking about. That holds all the uranium when the train comes and drops a load off. I'll go through all these factories briefly in a minute once we come back, and I'll follow the production line of how everything works. This bottom floor is going to be used for load balancing and distribution. The top floor is where all the trains are coming in, dropping all the stuff off. So what happens is they drop their stuff off. I've color coded them and named them. You see that's uranium, and then they go underneath, and we're going to deal with that and split it off to all the factories. There is a fair few more factories we need to build over here. At the moment, we've just got the quick wire factory set up. Fry's been working on that. I said to him, these are factories I've laid out here. They're quite basic. I said, let's just do the most basic factories, but you know how it is. You can get carried away sometimes and make it look fancy, but it does look pretty cool anyway. Those crushers there, they're just to test the system. That's all they're doing at the moment. So that's the quick wire anyway. I won't go through all the numbers right now, but basically a shitload of quick wire. Alright, so last video I showed the battery bank we've been working on. Yes, again, this is a vanilla playthrough, so every single thing has been hand clicked in, and yeah, obviously I've had help from people like DMAC, and Jed jumped in briefly before as well. But we're actually extending the battery bank. We're going to fill this whole floor. We're more than halfway done, and there's a little lookout tower in the center. That is the very center of this building. Okay, so that will go all the way down to the bottom. Alright, how many batteries do we have, in case you're wondering? If you just flick over here, 1,420 at the moment. We'll get a 2,400. They're just full of the stuff to make batteries. Cool. That's the. I've got the fog turned off at the moment. You can see the graphics die a bit, but that's the setup of the nuclear plant, and it's actually all dead center. Everything's dead center. That's dead center, and that's dead center with the train track there. Cool. Cool. All right, so we'll go to the train stations and have a brief look at where we picked the stuff up from. Alright, you know what? Since I just saved the game, I'll just do a quick demo of this hypertube and how you can get directional air control to take us to the desert, even though it's facing to the main base. And I have the fog turned off, so you'll get a good aerial view of what we've done so far. So let's give that a go. Hold jump, hold forward, and then feather it. There's a rubber factory that does 960 rubber plus a whole bunch of coke there as well. There's the quick wire factory, and you can see the factories that we've done so far anyway. And there's plenty of room here for we actually got quite a few more factories to build, but all the supplies are there at the moment. Okay, so we did do a bit more work here. This is, I guess you could call this an example of getting carried away. We actually needed heavy modular frames for nuclear plants and all the other things, just to build the buildings. Holy crap, it was a lot of, I don't want to talk about how much AFK handcrafting I did to be able to get it, because we are in vanilla. But anyway, just briefly, this is a heavy modular frame factory, but it also does these here, copper sheets and copper sheets and plate, just regular plates, to go on the train station, because we need them for nitric acid and something else. Alright, so this is the desert. Everything's really neat. All the buses are neat, 90 degrees and all the rest of it. That's where we're picking up the quartz down there. I'll pop in and see that on the way back. The steel, which we've seen in the last episode. So this is another train, like mini train hub for the desert, I guess. And we've got 4 stations getting caterium to make the quick wire, and sulfur, and we're also picking up the sulfur somewhere else. Okay, so nitric acid requires iron plates. But yeah, that's this area here, and I'll just move on to the next area. Okay, as we fly over here, you'll notice that we lose a lot of frames, but also we're passing over another crystal oscillator factory that Fry has built, and that's really cool. I'll go into that later, but that's for our turbo motor project, the main project that we're working on. Alright, so what I'm going to do here in the swamp is switch to hoverpack and hopefully not die. Yep. So I can use the power from the train tracks. I still have the fog turned off, so it's a lot easier to see. Alright, so the nuclear stuff. What I'm getting is the normal node out of this cave here, and then this actually goes off into the map to get the other node. So I bring the 2 normal nodes to this one train station. I'll die if I get too close to this. You can see I'm building up the radiation. But they basically come in here, and the train takes the to the other place. And then there's that impure node, which is up on that hill over there, and I literally just ran a belt to that because I didn't want to deal with drones. We are going to use the drones later for the plutonium, but that is, yeah, that's basically that. And that's a nice neat bus that goes through the jungle and things all the way to the other cave. Alright, so there's the crystal oscillator factory. Pretty cool. And we've got trains, kind of like we did in the modded playthrough. We have nice, straight, neat train tracks for the main train system. And then when we come off the train system to go into finicky areas with roads and things, we just come down and use the natural roads. Right, so good to see a train come through here, and Fry assured me that this doesn't clip as it comes through. And there it goes. But yeah, as you can see, without going through in detail everything we've done, we've put a lot of work in all around this world. We actually, I'll show on the map in a bit, we've actually connected the loop. We've actually looped the whole world now with this train track. Right, and I take care with the buses, like I said before. I don't just smash spaghetti through the forest. I like to have nice, neat everything like this. All right, and it does come in handy for later in case I need to build off it or whatever else. All right, so that's the bauxite. We still need to build an aluminium factory. This project is massive. It's probably the biggest project I've ever worked on. It's massive. So we've got bauxite here, and we're actually getting more sulfur. Right, you'll see from here, yeah, there's a sulfur node there, and this all goes back to that central one in the Northern Ocean. You'll see that this train track goes all the way out there, does a 90 and connects back up there. There's a water station over there, which Fry's using up in there for the crystal quartz. Now the reason I'm doing this is because we're potentially, well, almost certainly going to be using this ocean later in the game, and that Death Island over there to probably store waste. But that's going to be plutonium waste because we're not making any waste. Alright, so I'll head back to the main area and I'll briefly run through how the whole thing's going to work. Alright, so I just loaded the game that I saved before I took the hypertube there, and now I've got the fog turned back on. I'm on the bottom floor here of the logistics hub. And you can see not much going on, just the quickwire has been brought down here at the moment. Sorry, that's the Caterium going to the quickwire factory. Alright, I'm in this dead center. You'll be able to see that I can fly up past all the train stations. There is actually spare train stations here, which is good because it's always good to have spare. I might go a bit more elaborate with this tower. Right, so what happens is I'll point it out here briefly and then show it on the map. Bring all the goods that we need to here and then go out into these factories. We need to build crystal oscillators, high-speed connectors, stators, a whole bunch of stuff. I've got a spreadsheet actually as well, but I won't go through all the numbers in the spreadsheet. So everything gets made over here and then sent across to here. All right, the uranium comes over here and then goes on this side and makes the first part of the nuclear fuel rods, and then they come back out here and go down this bus into this factory and they make the nuclear fuel rods. Then the nuclear fuel rods go into the nuclear place, and then after that they spit out waste, and then the waste gets processed down in these three factories here, this one, and this one, and then we get plutonium fuel rods, and then we crush the plutonium fuel rods. So you may think, hey, this is an epic setup. Actually, see the radiation because the train's just dropping off a load underneath. This is an epic setup because for only like 70, but you got to think we are producing the plutonium fuel rods, and we have this whole setup with no waste, and we can run this with no waste. Then later on, we can use the plutonium fuel rods, which are going to get crushed there, put them on drones, send them over to that other ocean I was just at before, and we can actually build another 120 nuclear plants. So yeah, look, just briefly go through that on here. We need a whole bunch more factories here, and these ones are all just laid out. Oh, it's not going to load. These are just laid out. Alright, so nuclear stuff in here, comes down here, gets refined in here into the nuclear fuel rods, goes in here, makes the power, turns into the waste, comes in here, and then so on and so forth through here. Alright, so I'll briefly go through these factories here, and then we'll take a look at the way I've set this nuclear plant up. Alright, here we are at the first factory, and we'll have this hypertube going down. This is going to be filled with belts and pipes, this main bus. All sorts of different items going up and down here, but at the moment just a hypertube, and I've laid out the machines. And the reason that I've chosen to go flat instead of up is because we have the room, and also it gives you a good idea of how much is involved in this production line. That's why I've kept everything flat on the ground and spread out. Alright, so our first factory is where the uranium comes in. We need 1700 uranium. Sorry, we need 1300 uranium per minute, but we're bringing in way more than that. I'll just fly over here briefly. So what's happening in there is it's getting stored and load balanced and crushed. And you actually get a decent amount for just crushing straight up uranium. Alright, so if we have a look over here, you'll see that it's just sitting on belts ready to go, and there's a few crushing machines in there. I'm not going to go over there because I'll get killed, but what we want to do is get all the factories done. All the factories are going to have just little 2 high walls around them, just borders, just to give them a border, but you'll still be able to see them. Get all the factories done up to a point where everything possible is to be made is made. So here we have the alternate uranium cells getting made here with the uranium, and everything else is made and backed up. Then the plan will be to just go over here and just connect these 4 belts and start putting uranium in the system, because I don't want to have to troubleshoot the whole system at once, if you know what I mean. I'd like to just have, you know, troubleshoot the quick wire, troubleshoot the crystal oscillators, have everything up and running perfect, and then introduce uranium into the system, because that's when things start getting a bit harder, because I have to put on this radiation suit and I can't fly around as much and all that. But yeah, this is this first factory, all prepped to make infused uranium cells. This is the alternate I've chosen to use, and yeah, so in here we're going to make the silica just there out of the quartz, and the other items that are required will be coming from the other factories, the quick wire and just some sulfur. Alright, let's move on to the next factory, that one over there. Alright, while I'm in the hypertube here, I just want to point out these, we'll go through this factory in a sec, but I just want to point out how cool this looks, these particle accelerators, they're perfectly lined up, and it looks awesome at night time as well with the lights. It's going to look sick when they're actually working, when they're actually running. So we're at the next factory. Alright, I've prepped the belts. I've done all the main calculations, so I've calculated like what belts are going to come in where and whatnot, and prepped it so it's got enough room. Right, so we're actually making the uranium fuel rods here. Beacons, crystal oscillators, electromagnetic control rods are getting made on the eastern side over there, and we're not doing it yet. And these encased uranium cells are coming out of that previous factory that we were just at. Right, so they all come in here. 4 lines in. That's those 4 lines, which is these 4 items, and then 1 line out. So 4 items in, and it spits out 1 item, which is the actual nuclear fuel rods. Alright, so let's go over to the nuclear plant. Alright, so that's where the bus stops needing so many things on it, and it's literally got to the point where it gets to the nuclear plant, and it's going to have 1 line in, nuclear fuel rods, and 1 line out, nuclear waste. So I wanted to keep it nice and neat looking, and I may even do something with these power lines to even hide them or something, but anyway, so that's that. Alright, so it's going to have 700 nuclear waste per minute coming out. What I've done with this setup and all the other factories, actually, I've actually laid the machines down, selected the recipe, and ported the power. I've put power on every machine because that enables us to use the hover packs now, and when we go around and belt all these factories up, it's just going to be one less thing I have to do. Right, so this is the design I came up with. I was limited by the border because we're in the corner, So I had to rearrange it a few times. So it's 2 rows of 9 at the front. So 1, 2, 3, 9. 2 rows of 9, and then if it lets me fly a bit higher, come on. Yep, this is as high as it's going to let me fly. 2 rows of 9, and then it goes 2 rows of 11, and then 2 rows of 15 at the back. So it's kind of like I don't know, a triangle or like bowling, 10-pin bowling setup. I don't know what to call that shape. But yeah, so I wanted it, the top looks really clean. It's nice and clean. You'll see that the each has its own just input and output and water, and I'll go underneath and show what I'm doing with the belts and the water in a sec. But that's the idea. It's looking really clean, and I'm actually pretty happy with this setup. Alright, it did take a while to spam out all this concrete, but you know, not that long. Alright, so this is the way it is. Right, this right side is the side I did first, and then the left side is not done yet, as you'll see, because I just wanted like the template to make sure everything fit in, and now I can replicate it on the other side. I just laid the nuclear plants out just before for the purposes of this video. Right, it's getting dark. I might just cut the video for a second and let it get a little bit brighter before I go through what I've done under here. Alrighty, the day is starting, nice and bright now. So, just before I move on, in case anyone is wondering, that's actually not for the nuclear over there, that's actually the copper sheet factory I built in a previous episode. But everything else here is for the nuclear stuff. Okay, so I'll go underneath. Again, it's not all belted up yet, but I've planned out and made sure everything's going to fit. Okay, so our these containers are temporary, just for building. The way I've got these working is, I'll just go over to let's just use this one for example. Okay, so I've got the splitters will come down here actually and split to each line. So one of them's for waste. This is for waste coming back, the mergers, and then the splitters for the fuel rods to go to the machines. And underneath each nuclear plant has its own set of 2 water extractors pumping into the nuclear plant, and each one of those has 1 shard, which brings it up to and I just did this for ease. I know I could have smacked it in exactly, but now the reason I've done this way, 2 reasons. Okay, I know my mate D-Mac, he's done a nuclear plant recently, and he's just got 1 extractor cranked up to 300, because you're probably thinking, hey, those nuclear plants only take 300 water per minute, why don't you just use 1 extractor per thing and crank them up with 3 shards? Yes, that is ideal. D-Mac said he hasn't had any issues, but for me, I'm gonna feed these machines, these power plants, more than they need, because I've had dramas with pipes in the past, and I'm sure everyone that's played Satisfactory has had problems with pipes. So I don't want to come back here when I'm troubleshooting and find out that there's any dramas with water. I'm just going above and beyond, okay? And the other thing is, if you crank one of these up to, is it going to let me do it here? It's not going to, can I just drain this real quick? I'll just drain this. Right. If I crank this up, it goes to 86 megawatts, right? With 3 shards, okay? But if I only have 1 shard in each, it's actually less power. It actually consumes less power with 2 of these with 1 shard in each, and I get 360 or whatever it was water. Yeah, 360. And I know these only take 300, but like I said before, once this is completely irradiated and a death zone, and I'm trying to troubleshoot this thing, because let's face it, not everything's going to be perfect first try. Well, this would be the first time. I want to have water in the bag, as in like, I know for a fact water's not going to be an issue because I'm feeding all of these more than they need. And even though it's set to 360, like these combined, it's only going to take what it needs anyway. So it's not going to draw that much power. it'll just max out. Anyway, that's what we're doing under here. I've laid out the template for it, and I've started doing prepping, getting all these ready to go. So even under here, even though it's kind of hidden because the top looks really clean, even though it's hidden, it's actually really clean under here as well. These back bits aren't finished. I'm probably just going to do something like that along the back there, and that is the border. That is the border of the world, like the actual hard border. I can't build out there. Actually, these here, if this is a point to note, if you are going to build out here and plan a big structure, you can't actually build. I don't have the materials, but any further west than where they are. They're like templates there for me. They're just markers. I can't go any further west than that. The other thing is, if you fall, I think the border's somewhere around here. If I fall there, I'll go for a swim. But if I fall here, or like here, if I fall there, I'm going into the abyss. I'm going into the void. Alright, so be careful out here. Alright, so that's the nuclear plant. That's basically the nuclear plant. I've set it up. I've ran power to every bit, and then obviously a lot more pipe work and belt work needs to happen to finish it. But before it's completely ready. But that's it for now. It's all laid down, and yeah, pretty happy with that. Alright, so once we've generated all the power, which is a shitload of power, the waste is going to come down this line here, and I'll just switch to jetpack and utilize this. Alright, actually I'll just stand on this and admire it as I leave. I was going to change the color of these, but I actually like the default color I've made. It looks fine. I tried one as green. Everyone likes to paint their nuclear plants green for good reason, but I think this is a pretty good look and color scheme. Pretty happy with it. Alright, so the nuclear waste is going to come into this factory here. Now this is a bit of a beast of a factory. I'll try to just go through it briefly and quickly. Nitrogen, sulfur, let's just look at the blender. Okay, this is the recipe I've chosen, the alternate fertile uranium, now to turn waste into non-fissile. Now you'll notice with this alternate, it actually requires more uranium, but this is what I've chosen to do, and it produces heaps of this stuff. Alright, so yeah, so this factory needs nitric acid and sulfuric acid. So these blenders here are going to make the nitric acid. Again, I've set all the recipes and given the machines power. So when it comes to belting all this stuff up, like, it's just going to be a belt fest basically. We just come in and copy and belt and smash it all in, turn it on, troubleshoot it. Alright, so I've laid out everything, spaced out everything. Yep, that's happening. We're making sulfuric acid here, and that gets smashed into those machines. Now, with pipes, if anyone's ever done a big aluminium setup or anything like that, any setup that has a byproduct of water or any other byproduct of any liquid, you do not want this clogging up your system. Okay, you want to make sure this water is gone at all times. Now you're probably thinking, hey, this uses water, right? And this sulfuric acid uses water. Why not route that water back into these machines? Yeah, well, I've tried that before, and there's always seems to be dramas. So what I'm doing is I'm playing it on the safe side, because this is going to be irradiated. What I'm doing, and you may think this is quite funny, but I'm doing it. I'm just bringing in fresh water for these machines, and then with the excess water here, I'm bringing it over here into this setup here, which is a wet concrete setup. I'm using up all that excess water over here in that concrete and literally shoving the concrete into the crushing machines. That is the plan, and then I'm guaranteed to not have any dramas with excess water in here. Okay, there's two pure nodes of concrete, or two pure nodes just over there. It kind of works out perfectly. I'm just going to run a thingy across here. Try and make it look neat. Smash concrete in there. Smash the limestone in there, and then smash the concrete into these guys here. Alright, so that's the way I've chosen to do it, and that's the recipes I've chosen, and that's the beauty of this game. There is no right or wrong way to do things. It's just different ways of doing things. This is the way I've chosen to do it. Alright, so we'll move on to the next stage of refining the nuclear waste, which is this factory over here. I could probably just jetpack over. I was going to put walls around this, but then going past in the hypertube, it actually looks really awesome. And it looks awesome at night time. So I can't wait to see these running. And I'm going to leave it the way it is. I'm just going to leave it just on a platform here. No walls, no nothing, just out in the open. This is the first time I've played with particle accelerators. There's 38 of them here. Right, so that's to deal with the non-fissile uranium. Non-fissile uranium comes in. Mix it with alley casing. We've got to make an aluminium factory. Shove it in here, and we make a whole bunch of plutonium cells. Right, now the only problem with these is you can't paint them. You watch now. It'll prove me wrong. But let's try it. Let's just try paint one. Whatever. It doesn't matter what color. See, it just they won't paint. It's unfortunate. Anyway, all right. So that's this factory, and that's pretty simple, basically. It's the next stage of refinement. Oh yeah, they use a hell of a lot of power. So they use 500 megawatts on average each one. So that is a lot of power getting used. Let's talk about power briefly. Here we go, 72,000. We're running from our coal and turbo fuel setups. We're using 59,000. All right. We're pushing it. We're pushing the limit. You can see up here, max consumed is heaps more, and we haven't even laid out all the factories we need to do. Okay, we're going to break the system, definitely, and I want to, because I want to try out these batteries up here. I can't ping it; it's too far away. All right, so, but also the motor factory over there, that motor factory is turned off. That draws about 10,000 megawatts nearly. So I've got that turned off at the moment. And there's a couple of other factories we've got turned off. So it's going to be fun. What I want to do is, like, we were pushing the limit. We were nearly about to use the batteries. We got so much stored. But what I want to do is fire up the motor factory once this is all done. Fire up the motor factory, fire up everything, and work these batteries. I want to see them in action. Because once all these, the thing is, these draw a lot of power, right? You can think about it this way. These draw 500 megawatts each on average. However, these won't be running unless they've received the non-fissile, which means that these nuclear powers are running. So, do you know what I mean? It's not like these are going to be running and like push the grid to its limit, because these will only fire up once we have nuclear power online. Anyway, I'll fast forward and move to the final stage of production for plutonium. Alright, here we are, the final factory. So the whatever that was making, the plutonium cells, they'll come out of the bus, along the bus in here. It seems a bit silly, I could probably bring them across here. Maybe I will, I don't know. Anyway, this is the final stage. We're making plutonium fuel rods, steel beams, electromagnetic control rods, heat sinks. These are all other items that are getting made elsewhere and coming down that main bus. What you see here is 50 manufacturers, 2 rows of 25, and it works out I can do it on one belt. When I space these out, I wonder if I've got enough. I always space them out if you're facing machines. Right on that white line there allows you to do the I can't do it, but you stack the splitters, and then you can have conveyor lifts going to each side, have a nice manifold. So that's why I've done this one long line. This is just a bunch of constructors making the steel, because I'll be bringing steel ingots in here, and then we send the plutonium fuel rods, 12.5 plutonium fuel rods. After all, this is what's really funny. I found this quite funny. After like all of these factories, and I didn't even show the rubber factory. All of these factories, there's more and more and more. All of these train stations, everything around the world, bringing everything in here. Building all of these factories, the nuclear plant, processing it all with all these machines. It comes down, I could probably even have one line, 12.5 plutonium fuel rods per minute into this little guy here, and then gets crushed. But that's pretty cool. We're going to have a nuclear plant with 70, no waste. Then with 12.5 plutonium fuel rods per minute, we can run 120 nuclear plants. But that's going to produce waste. But that's another story. We can actually run 125 nuclear plants, but we're going to do 120. Anyway, that should do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed that one. And the next video will be actually running this thing. Hopefully it doesn't take us too long to belt up and get all these factories done. Yeah, that'll do. Catch us later.